Today's presentation is on hand and portable power tool safety. Boy, I'll tell you, these are things that we use all the time, and we just don't even think about it. We have tools. You may work at a desk. If you open the drawer on your desk, there will be some portable tools, hand tools in your desk. It may be a letter opener, it may be a stapler, but hey, they're tools nonetheless. Every one of those tools that we work with has a potential to cause an injury to ourselves or somebody else. And so we want to make sure that we're thinking about this. This is one of the most basic safety courses that you can have, and you probably had it if you took any sort of shop class when you were in school. But sometimes it's easy to forget some of these really simple rules, and they lead to a lot of injuries. How do I know that we forget sometimes? Well, I'm pretty human myself, and I also see claims coming in where people have cuts or they get wrapped up in a tool, where they have one problem or another. And so we think this is an important subject, because each of us can make a bad decision sometime, and so it's important for us to pay attention to to these hand tools and portable power tool safety. Tools are around us every day, and any of us can be injured. Take a look at your hands. Got any band-aids there? Any marks or scars there? We probably all had a run-in with one of these hand tools over the years. Well, let's talk about how we can be safe with those things, and remember what those simple safety rules are when it comes to hand tools and portable power tools. All right, so safety first. Know the tool, know what it is, know what it's supposed to be used for, how it's supposed to be used. What are the hazards to it? What is the proper personal protective equipment? I remember reading the first time I ever saw a sticker on a screwdriver that said wear your PPE, wear safety glasses with this. I thought that was pretty silly until I realized a few things about tools. They're not always used exactly how they were intended, and there's a potential that screwdriver gets used as a chisel or a pry bar or something like that. Not the right way to use it, and I'm not advocating that. I'm telling you not to do that. But you better have your safety glasses on when you're using even something as simple as a screwdriver. And other simple things: keep your hair tied back, keep your jewelry enclosed, or don't wear it at all. Keep those clothing items out of the way where they could get wrapped up. Back to that jewelry stuff. Don't have chains, necklaces hanging out that could get wrapped up. As a safety guy, I don't wear any jewelry. I've seen far too many injuries involving jewelry, and so if I'm anywhere around a tool, for sure I don't have it. But just as a standard practice, I don't wear that stuff. All right, how do injuries and accidents happen with hand tools? Well, the hazards of those are pretty common. You may be able to walk out into your shop or whatever it is you do, wherever you have your tools, and find some of these right now. Tools can be damaged, they can be defective. Sometimes we buy cheap stuff and it doesn't really fit the bill, and it gets damaged and it doesn't do the job. Not using the tool for its intended purpose, like we said, using that screwdriver as a chisel. Tools not maintained to the manufacturer's specifications, keeping the guards in place, making sure that we're using it only as the manufacturer intends, and not inspecting our tools or not using our proper personal protective equipment. These are all hazards that can cause us injury or accident when we're dealing with those types of tools. Other hazards that we may not think about are tools can make dust. They can make fumes and vapors and gases, and also shoot out sparks and flying chips and things that can damage our eyes. But those gases, those dusts can injure our lungs or our respiratory system. They can actually be fatal. Things like crystalline silica, things like asbestos, that we pull out that demo saw and we start cutting concrete or cutting a piece of pipe that has asbestos in it. that could actually contribute to the end of our life because of breathing in that kind of dust. And just an FYI, I'll do this a couple of times through here. We have some webinars out there on each of these subjects. There's a lot of detail that we can go into. So somewhere out here, I'll put a link, and you can go to crystalline silica and asbestos and et cetera, as we go along. All right, personal protective equipment. Make sure you're always using safety glasses. You know what? That's the most basic form of personal protective equipment, and also the most important in my mind. Whatever type of injury that you have out there, you can lose fingers, you can lose even some pretty major parts of your body, or lose your certain abilities. But if you can't see, that really diminishes your life. So always have those safety glasses with you and use them. Use the right PPE for the job. And you may not need some fancy chaps like you can see in this picture for a lot of what you do. But if you pull out that chainsaw, that's the appropriate PPE for the job. And that Kevlar is going to keep your leg attached. So make sure you're using the proper personal protective equipment for the job. All right. Make sure that that tool is in good shape. It's accessible. I know where to find it, and it's in good condition. Buy good quality of tools. Now, I've been known to buy a cheap tool here and there. And most times when I do that, I pay the price. They're not as good. They're not as safe as a tool that is maybe a little higher in price. So when it comes down to my personal safety, it's definitely worth it to buy a good quality tool that's intended for the job that we're looking at. A few other rules that we talk about when it comes to hand tools. Don't use cheater bars. If I can't get that bolt to break free with the breaker bar or the ratchet that I have, don't put a pipe on it to get a little more leverage. Get a different tool. Get the appropriate tool to do that job. Know what the limits are for your tool. Now, some of those will be very specific, like a jack will actually say the load limit that I can lift with it. Others have to be maybe a manufacturer's requirement, or something that I just got to be pretty smart about. This is a little beyond what I can do with this tool, or this is an inappropriate use for it. If a tool is damaged, throw it away, and you may want to even destroy it, so it doesn't get picked out of the dumpster by somebody who just can't seem to let that damaged tool go away. We don't want a broken tool hanging around, because somebody may get injured with it, so get rid of it. All right. Using the appropriate tool for the job. Just once again, don't use your screwdriver as a chisel, or your chisel as a screwdriver. Your hand is not a hammer. I tell that to my kids over and over again as I see them pounding on things. Your hand is not a hammer. And your hand will thank you if you don't use it as a hammer. Neither is your crescent wrench or those other tools that you have. Make sure that we're using it appropriate for the job. Inspect your tools every time. Make sure the guards are there. Make sure it's not damaged. If I've got an electrical piece of equipment that has a cord on it, check the cord that the insulation isn't damaged. Make sure that third prong is on that plug. If it's an air tool, make sure that the hoses are in good shape. And look for loose or missing parts. And for tools that get damaged as we're using them, like a chisel, the head starts getting mushroomed on it. Tune those up. We want to grind those off and keep those safe. If there's tape on the handle of a tool or on a cord, that means there's a problem there, and I need to take that tool out of service and figure out what's going on. Either repair it or dispose of that tool. Keep those guards in place. You can see in this picture, somebody has cut a wedge of wood and put into to hold the guard on this circular saw. Well, that could be a real bad awakening if I forget that I did that and bounce that blade against my leg, or set it down on the deck, and it takes off and goes and hurts somebody else. All right, just a few other rules. A sharp tool is a safe tool. Now, that may seem a little bit counterintuitive to some people out there, Well, it's a sharp tool, it could cut me. Yeah, that's true, but it'll also do its job the way it was intended. A sharp tool will perform that task, whereas a dull tool may take more effort. It may slip, it may be inconsistent. So make sure that our tools are in the condition that they should be used. Inspect every time. Do periodic maintenance. Some things need to be checked and repaired, just like a head on a hammer needs to be checked on a periodic basis to make sure it is tight and it's not going to dislodge from the handle. Once again, if there's a problem, throw it away. Let's get rid of those things. Use the appropriate accessories that go along with that. If I've got an angle grinder, don't put on a grinding disc that is too big for it. Well, chances are that the RPM, the revolutions per minute rating on that grinding disc are not the same as they are for the tool itself. Well, if I over rotate that disc, it can fly to pieces and cause me to get hit with shrapnel. And there have been fatal injuries that have happened from just that happening, where those sharp parts will come back and cut somebody's throat or other parts of their body, or they lose eyes. So use the appropriate accessories for the job. And remember, keep your toes out of the way. Ow! when you're using those tools. Don't carry tools in your pockets. If I put a screwdriver or a pair of scissors in my back pocket and I forget it's there, I may sit on it. I may slip and fall. However it happens, I may end up with an injury that I don't want to explain to anybody there. We have tool belts for a reason. That's for carrying those tools. So if I've got to carry those tools around, put them in a tool belt. Keep your hands clean and your gloves as well, and that'll prevent slipping and getting injured by that tool. Don't carry a tool by its cord or the hose that's connected up to it. It has a handle for a reason. Carry the sharp part down. Don't walk around with that sharp part pointing out to where others or yourself could be injured. Keep your finger off the trigger, just the same as with a firearm. Only have your finger on the trigger when you're ready to use that tool. Put yourself in a good position to be safe. Have good footing, balance. Don't put yourself in an awkward location. And when you're done with that tool, clean it up and put it away where everybody else knows where it's supposed to be, and it'll be there the next time you're looking for it. Let people know on the work site, or let people at the work site know what you're doing. Let them know what's up. I'm going to be doing this job and I'm going to be grinding on something. There's going to be sparks flying around here, or whatever the job may be. Let people know what's coming up and keep them out of harm's way. Take a look at your housekeeping. If I've got slippery floors and I've got to be pushing really hard on a drill to drill into something, a wall or whatever, that puts me at risk that I could slip and get injured. So look at your housekeeping. Keep stuff up off of the floor, and that means cords and hoses, things like that may cause others to trip or cause us to trip. Look at fire prevention as well. Don't have flammable materials around when I'm using a grinder. Don't use things that potentially could be combustible around these tools. And also look for our electrical safety. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes when we talk portable powered tools. And remember, there are, ouch, other things that can be a hazard to us as well, like spring tension. This poor guy, ow, that would really hurt. Basic hand tools. Here's some other rules that we have on files. Files are a great tool, but they're only intended to be used for one thing. They need to have a handle on them. Files are not sold with a handle in place. We put that on after. They're a consumable part of a tool, a handle, something that we keep using over and over, and the file wears out, we put it away, or we throw it away. Files aren't for prying or hammering. They're made of really hard steel, and when that gets struck, it can shatter and it can shoot out razor sharp pieces of metal that can cut you or put your eye out. So use those only the way they're supposed to be used. Cut away from yourself, cut away from other people. Pretty simple rule, but it's one that we see happen quite often, where people will be using a box knife or a razor knife in one way or another, cutting a zip tie, and they end up slicing their hand or slicing their arm open because they were cutting towards themselves. Air tools. Whoops, excuse me, I'm looking ahead a little bit. Jacks and hydraulic equipment are important tools as well. They are rated for lifting a certain capacity. Don't ever exceed that. When you're working under a vehicle or you're working under a load, those loads need to be blocked up by jack stands or other appropriate cribbing that is adequate for the weight that we're looking at. Use the jack to lift it up, and then use the jack stand to hold it in place. Those jack stands should have stop indicators that say where you shouldn't exceed, so I don't raise it up too high. And we also need to document inspections of those every 6 months. That's one of those OSHA standards that a lot of people don't really remember about. Air tools have the potential of having pressure cause injury to us. If you take a air nozzle on that isn't equipped with a blow-by device, you can see in this picture, that nozzle has some holes in it. That's to allow air to blow by. So if I happen to deadhead that, which you shouldn't do, don't ever put that nozzle up against your skin, because it could penetrate, that air could penetrate and cause an embolism, which could even kill you if it gets into your bloodstream. If I happen to deadhead that against my body, these holes would keep the pressure below 30 psi, and that's really the limit. I can have higher psi in my system, pounds per square inch, but I got to have those blow-bys there. So go out in the shop today and take a look. Most of these little nozzles like this will have that blow-by on it, but I have a suspicion that there may be a few out there that they've modified and put a longer nozzle on those so they can blow out radiators and things that are hard to reach. And chances are that they don't have those blow-bys on them. So take a look at those today. Make sure all of our air equipment is securely connected. Don't use hose clamps to put these things on. There are dedicated ways to put this equipment in place, or to hook fittings onto those. Retainer clips should be installed on air chisels, things like that, so it doesn't allow those to fly out. Meet the pressure. You need to meet the pressure requirements for each tool that you're using. And once again, remember, watch the RPM rating of the tool and the wheel, or whatever the tool is that you're using on there to grind or cut, and do not ever exceed that rating. Okay, I'm going to warn you here before I switch to the next slide. If you're a little have a problem with gory stuff, it's not too bad, but I'm going to talk about nail guns. So warning, look away for a minute while I'm talking about nail guns. These are one of those great tools that makes us much more efficient. But boy, if we don't use them right, we can have some really nasty injuries here, like you can see in this picture. Keep your safeties in place. That means that there's that safety switch on the tip of that has to be depressed before it will allow that nail gun to discharge a nail. Don't point it at people. Disconnect that when not in use. When you're changing out, putting in new nails, you should disconnect that hose. Know what's on the other side of the substrate that I'm working on. I'm nailing a wall, make sure I know what's there. It may be people, it may be electrical, it may be pipes. And any one of those could be for a really bad day if I don't pay attention to it. All right, we've gone away from the picture now of that. Oh, ouch. Now we just have a video of a guy getting wrapped up here. Electrical tools. They make our lives so much easier. I've been amazed as I have seen the improvements in particularly the battery operated, the cordless tools, and how much torque they have. They are awesome tools, and I enjoy using these things, but they also have plenty of potential as well. So let's talk about how we stay safe using powered hand tools. One of those is every time before I use it, I'm going to inspect it. Inspect the cords. Don't ever carry the tool by the cord or hose if it's an air tool. Make sure it's properly grounded, has that third prong on it. Those old drills, you may have one hanging around out in the shop that's got a metal case on it. And I know they're great old tools and they're torquey, but they may electrocute you. So they're not what we call double insulated. Take those out of service and let's get a tool that does have those protections. Keep the cords away from heat, oil, sharp objects, things that can damage it. If I'm working in wet areas, I need to have a GFCI or ground fault circuit interrupter. What the heck does that mean? Well, it is like in your bathroom. If you happen to drop the hair dryer into a sink full of water, it's the thing that pops in that outlet and doesn't allow electricity to keep flowing. Well, some of you may say, well, how am I supposed to have a GFCI wherever I'm using a tool? They're not all wired that way. Well, portable GFCIs are available, and you basically plug them in as an extension cord or in line with an extension cord, and they will provide that kind of protection for you. Don't yank on cords. Make sure you grab them by the handle. That protects that insulation and it doesn't get separated that way. Keep this stuff away from water. We don't want to get shocked. Electrical tools, and unplug when you're charging up these cordless tools. Where do I store and where do I charge my cordless tools? Well, there's some pretty significant risk to those battery operated tools. So make sure that they are stored in an area that's free from combustibles. I don't want a fire to get away from me if we do happen to have that. So your charging area should be free of any combustibles. Watch for heat so we don't overheat those things. Don't put you can see in this picture, they do this a lot on YouTube where they test different tools to see which one's stronger. Well, you can see they will catch on fire. They'll get extremely hot. What happens if a lithium battery breaks or potentially catches on fire? Well, it's far more dangerous than some of the old batteries that we've had, because those lithium ions can, especially if they're exposed with water, catch on fire and explode. And so we've got to watch for those things. Here's a quick video. Battery that had lithium, or a scooter that had lithium ion batteries in it, caught on fire, and this guy decides to pour a little water on it and blows up the neighborhood. Be really wise about those things, including your phone. Grinders. I'm just going to plug some videos that we have. We have some safety shorts on our YouTube channel on both angle and bench grinders. We didn't really have enough time to go into detail on those. So somewhere around here, there'll probably be a link to one or both of those where you can go and check that out. But just a couple of things on hand grinders, those angle grinders. Keep that guard in place. That's one of the first things that a lot of people do is they yank that guard off. It's there to protect you. Some people complain about that. Well, I can't use the tool. It won't do what I need to do with the guard in place. And most of the time that's because they don't understand how the guard is designed. It's designed to actually rotate around that wheel, and you can put it in the location that allows you to do the job the way you need to. Don't ever use damaged wheels on these things. If you drop it and it damages that wheel at all, take it off and replace it. They are a consumable part of the tool. Just throw away those damaged ones, because they will fly apart and hurt you. Make sure they're the right size, the correct RPM rating, and the right material for the job. Don't use a cutting disc to grind things. Don't use a grinding disc to cut things. Gas operated tools have an extra level of hazard because they are a motor running and they're releasing carbon monoxide. That's a really toxic material, and we had a really scary situation. It wasn't a hand tool. It was actually part of the heating and system of a building, and we had multiple people get injured with carbon monoxide poisoning. And that's how easy it can happen, is if you start up a tool inside of a confined area, you can get enough carbon monoxide to make you sick or kill you in not very many minutes, even sometimes seconds. So fuel handling, make sure we're using approved OSHA safety cans, and that we eliminate ignition sources from the area when we're dispensing that fuel, and make sure when we're using anything that has a spark that I have fire extinguishers, and I've done my fire prevention. And in and above that, we recommend that you have a hot work program. Hey, there's another video around that one as well. And I'll just do one more. These are those OSHA safety cans, and I'm going to let this video play for just a second, just as a reminder. On these demo or cutoff saws, and the danger that we have with those. We had two near fatal injuries in the last year from kickbacks or other challenges with these tools. Make sure that you're paying attention. We have a webinar on that Mike did a little while ago, probably a link somewhere, and watch that one. If you're using these tools, use a better alternative. There are a lot of cases where there's a better option than using this type of tool. These are great for some things, but they're just dangerous. Okay, and based on time, I better wrap this thing up. Just if you have questions or comments, type those into the chat box, and we'll answer those right after I summarize what we've talked about. Tools are awesome. Some of my possessions that I prize the most are tools. I like those things, and they've made my life much better. But they also have a great potential to cause us a lot of harm if we're not smart about how we use those. So just remember, some of these basic tools, keep that tool in good condition, inspect it every time before you use it. If there's a problem with it, either fix it or throw the thing away. That will help us stay safe when we're out there doing our jobs. All right, I'm looking over here for questions, and I'm seeing none. Normally that right now is when I fill just a little bit or ask the other people on the call for their opinion of things, and I'm the only one here today. So it looks like we've got no questions here, and we've got another webinar coming up in just a half hour on flood preparations and prevention. So if you haven't signed up for that one, click on training and events at utahtrust.gov on our website, and you can sign up there. Thank you very much, Kobe. Appreciate the kudos there. Hope everybody is inside and warm and dry today, or if you go outside, please be safe in what you do. I hope you have a safe day.